We gotta talk about Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. Because for one reason or another, this shit's going in history books. But at least in the short term, in this 24-hour news cycle, a big part of the reason this got so much attention is because of headlines ranging from offensive Latino, Puerto Rico jokes at Trump MSG rally launch wave of criticism, to Trump headlines Madison Square Garden rally after vulgar, racist remarks from allies. Where you just look out, whether it be headlines or people talking on the internet, people noting the attempted jokes about black people, Jewish people, Latinos, as well as racist and misogynistic comments about Vice President Kamala Harris. You had folks like Grant Cardone not so subtly calling Harris a whore.
She makes her boss look competent. She's a fake. I'm not here to invalidate her. She's a fake, a fraud. She's a pretender. Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
Then, for example, as Tucker Carlson was planting the seeds for doubt if Kamala Harris wins this 50-50 election, he said it this way.
It's going to be pretty tough for them 10 days from now to look in the eye to America with a straight face. It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president, it was just a groundswell of popular support. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just a freak or a criminal.
With many arguing that he was playing into the racist angle because he knows that Harris is black and Indian, not Samoan and Malaysian. There are people saying it's like he went out of his way to choose two random brown ethnicities. During this day of joy, Harris was also called the Antichrist by David Rem, one of Trump's lifelong friends, even though the two reportedly just met 2 weeks ago. Also, I will say notably with Rem, he emphasized that Trump needs a Latino vote and that it would, quote, switch this election for your favor. Though possibly one of the speakers last night might have fucked that up. Right? And that because what comedian Tony Hinchcliffe said on stage, which if you don't recognize this guy, he's the host of the extremely popular comedy show called Kill Tony. And apparently Hinchcliffe thought it would be a great idea to just kind of do a set at this political rally, with these now being kind of the main highlights that are getting shared around.
That's cool, black guy with a thing on his head. What the hell is that, a lampshade? Look at this guy. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm just kidding. That's one of my buddies. He had a Halloween party last night. We had fun. We carved watermelons together. It was awesome. Well, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
And really, that line about Latinos, as well as this next clip, they've garnered the most attention.
It is absolutely wild times. It really, really is. And, you know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Right, and immediately Tony's comments and his attempted jokes, they were called out as racist and drew the attention of major names from Puerto Rico. Like with Bad Bunny, for example, he didn't address Tony directly, but instead he just reposted clips from a recent Harris campaign video highlighting her support for Puerto Ricans. Right, and that video actually came out before Trump's rally, but the timing ended up being pretty good for her, and many took it as him officially endorsing Harris. Though this also is others far more explicitly called out Tony, such as Ricky Martin, who wrote on a reposted clip of Tony, "This is what they think of us," as well as an explicit Harris endorsement. You also, this is gonna sound like a Mad Lib, had AOC and Tim Walz reacting to the clip while streaming on Twitch and playing games, with Walz highlighting that Puerto Ricans are Americans and they serve in the US at among the highest rates, and AOC adding,
I need people to understand that when you have some a-hole calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, know that that's what they think about you. That is exactly, like, that's just what they think about you. It's what they think about anyone who makes less money than them. It's what they think about the people who serve them food in a restaurant. It's what they think about the people who fold their clothes in a store. Like,
you're
dude,
right.
Are you serious? Like, are you serious?
Yeah, the privilege of being on this campaign is traveling across the entire country. There are hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans across in battleground states that need to send them a message on this.
I want them to
You
like,
gotta vote.
You even had some former Trump supporting Puerto Ricans like Geraldo Rivera having expressed frustration and anger at the comments, saying, fuck these racists. Latino men of goodwill, have pride in yourselves and your ancestors. A vote for Trump is a vote against self-respect. I mean, he even had Republican Senator Rick Scott denouncing it. Now, all that said, for his part, Tony tried to downplay the situation by saying they were just jokes and later responded to Walz with, these people have no sense of humor. Wild that a vice presidential candidate would take time out of his, quote, busy schedule to analyze a joke taken out of context to make it seem racist. I love Puerto Rico and vacationing there. I made fun of everyone. Watch the whole set. I'm a comedian, Tim. Might be time to change your tampon. But right, the whole it's just a joke, it wasn't working for a lot of people who had takes like, I understand this might have been intended as a joke by a comedian, but when comments like this are made at a political rally, not a comedy club, they take on a different and more damaging meaning. And to see what they mean, right, you have people comparing two clips. First, this clip of Rudy Giuliani bashing Palestinians.
And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't let a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't let a Palestinian in Egypt. And Harris wants to bring them to you. Donald Trump's on the side of Israel, and they're on the side of the terrorists.
And then separately, you have this clip of Hinchcliffe from the event.
When it comes to Israel and Palestine, we're all thinking the same thing. Settle your stuff already. Best out of 3. Rock, paper, scissors. You know the Palestinians are gonna throw rock every time. But you also know the Jews have a hard time throwing that paper. You know what I'm saying?
Right, you have a number of people noting this is the same exact event. So for many, it can be hard to tell where the joke ends and where the rhetoric begins. But now with all that said, of course, there's a question of, well, does this matter? Does this or does anything these days move the needle? And with that, you have some saying, yes, absolutely. Or at the very least, there is a fear that it might. And the reason for that is the Trump campaign's actually trying to do damage control by distancing themselves from Tony's comments. Although notably, Trump himself has yet to comment on that situation. But it does make sense that the people trying to get him elected would want to try to create that distance. Because as it turns out, Latinos and Puerto Ricans in particular are a major voting bloc in key battleground states. I mean, it's such a disaster. You have some claiming that this rally alone in that specific moment, it may have done serious damage to Trump's chances of getting reelected, which is exactly why we saw people like a former Trump White House official writing, who wants to tell these guys there are 500,000 Puerto Ricans living in battleground PA whose votes are up for grabs. And former White House official Peter Navarro saying that Tony is, quote, the biggest, stupidest asshole that ever came down the comedy pipe. Then separate from that, you had political analyst Stephen Miller making some headlines. Right in that, because he was pushing America is for Americans only, which a number of people argued is suspiciously similar to the Nazi slogan, Germany for the Germans, and the KKK pamphlet titled America for Americans. Although there's also the argument that it's not that deep and it's just a populist sentiment. But then finally, that brings us to Trump, who actually ends up being the smallest part of this story. And I'm also just gonna kind of paraphrase because his remarks, I mean, he kind of just rambled, right? Like it would just add another 10 minutes to this piece for him to get to the point. Though to his credit, at points, he did talk about an actual policy point, which is rare for his campaign, but he promised a tax credit for those who take care of elderly family members or those with disabilities, which notably is similar to what Harris has also recently promised. But then other than that, it was kind of the classic Trump stuff, rambling bits about migrants, journalists, and other people that he's not a fan of. But he made vague threats to his opponents and called them the enemy from within. And of course, in the past, he clarified this meant, quote, the crazy lunatics we have, the fascists, the Marxists, the communists, the people that we have that are actually running the country. Also for migrants, he promised to use the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act to go after them, which to be clear would be a completely unprecedented use of the law. He also bashed the military leaders of the past few decades, likely because many have come out warning about Trump's insane fantasies while in the White House that we talked about last week. But yeah, I mean, time will tell if this had any impact and what it is. You're not gonna have to wait that long because I mean, the election is in a week. What the fuck? It's actually happening. And so yeah, I'll just end on your daily reminder. Vote. Vote early if you can. Do not push this off. You can go to vote.org, select your state, find any and all information that you need to vote, and get your like-minded friends and family to do it as well. As far as all of us should be concerned, good polls, bad polls, shouldn't matter. Vote. That's the only thing that matters. It's the difference between words and actions.